What's going on, everybody? I'm Pastor Josh, and you are listening to another episode of the Preach That podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an important announcement, a huge announcement, because I'm excited, because I have a first-time guest with me here today that 10 days ago had never even spoken a word to. But now, as of today, I consider this man a friend and a brother. I am blessed that Pastor Daryl is here.
Yes.
Pastor DPJ, D Philly.
Absolutely.
How many different names do you have?
DPJ, D Philly, Pastor Daryl, Pastor DPJ. It just depends on what part of my life you met me in.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Hey, man, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Like I said, I wanted to reach out. I didn't want to be that guy.
I'm with you. So last Friday we actually met. We had lunch.
Yes.
And we were talking about it. And I'm not even for like a week or two before. I literally pulled up your page and hit send message and looked at it. And I'm like, I don't even know what this is.
Yeah.
I'm kind of I can be socially awkward. And so I don't ever know like what to say or how to go about it.
Right.
So
right.
like I started almost every message when I reach out to somebody at first, like, hey, this might be weird.
It might be a little.
Because I feel like it is.
Right. And I'm an introvert. So like.
Right. Me too.
I'm like, man, I would look at your stuff and I'm like, man, Josh's stuff is nice, man. He's cool. I like his hat. I'm just going to send him a mess. Nah, you're not sending him a
Right.
Because you never know, like, how it'll be received,
Right.
or
Exactly.
especially like in the podcast space,
Right.
where usually everybody's real friendly, but you never want somebody to think like you're trying to use their platform,
Right.
or
Yeah.
you're trying to steal audience. You know how it goes,
exactly.
And so then it's like,
Yeah, I think it's just another lie the enemy sold us.
It is.
Because he's just convinced us that, they're going to think you're weird or this or that, or they're going to think that you're competing, and it's all these issues.
Yeah.
And especially our churches are, well, we'll get into your church currently.
Yeah, for sure.
But our churches are approximately 35, 40 minutes apart in distance wise.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's even harder for two local pastors to get to that point, because the enemy has perverted things to the point where it's a competition for the congregant and the new person and the new family and the single mom.
It's ridiculous.
And so that always goes through my head too. It's like, how will they receive this, because they're a pastor that's like also local. Like our church is that far apart, but we probably only live about 15 minutes apart, 20 minutes apart. So that's something. But I think that the reason that he was whispering in both of our ears is because the contrast to what I was just saying is that when two local pastors can get together and it's not a competition, or it's not, we did this, this is what our building looks like, this is what our worship team is, special things can happen.
Absolutely. It's such a shame that we've allowed the divisiveness.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because in one breath we'll be like, the enemy's divisive and he wants to kill, steal, destroy, he wants to divide us.
Right.
And then in the very next breath be like, I'm not doing that with that church. What do you mean?
Right.
Like,
we preach it on Sunday, but we don't live it on Monday.
Man, at all. Yeah, it's wild, man. So I'm glad that you had the courage to reach out. I do believe that eventually we would have got tired of just like, hey, nice post. Hey, that was but I'm glad that you were like, I'm just going to do it and see what happens. Yeah, absolutely.
3 to 5 years ago, I never would have sent the message. I was still super like insecure, just constantly thinking what cared about what other people thought, just all in my head. And over probably the last 5 years or so, God has really been bringing me into a new season of my life and kind of delivering me from the bondage of what other people think,
right? And
really just walking in what He is telling me to do and called me to do.
Amen.
So,
amen.
Tell us a little bit. So when I had first heard about you, we were both pastoring at probably two of the largest 3 churches in our county.
Yeah.
And so, and now neither one of us are still remaining at those current churches. I've told my story a little bit, but tell us a little bit about your story.
So I was, first of all, I moved down here from Aurora, which is a northwestern suburb of Chicago. Yeah. It's like West Chicago. When me and my wife started courting, so this is like 2007, 2008.
Okay.
Came down here. Salisbury Church was the first church that we went to. Once we got together, we're like, hey, we got to find a church. Yeah. Boom. Salisbury under Scott Sims teaching. And I was there. I led the prayer team there for a while. Pastor Scott handed the church over to my friend Whit Lowers. Whit's the lead now. Whit brought me on as an elder.
Okay.
So I was an elder for a while. Yeah. And then Whit asked me to come on as associate pastor. So I did that for about 3 years. And then my wife and I felt the calling to plant a church locally in Coles County. So that's what we're doing right now. I'm the lead pastor of Destination Church, Coles County. And we're excited that the church planting process it's nothing like I thought it would be.
That makes sense.
And it's kind of one of those things where you're operating completely on a word, faith, 100%, because it's not initially something that you can see.
Yeah.
You can see it, but it's not something that you're like, there it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's a lot of pieces that have to get put together, a lot of hurry up and wait. And so we're excited. It's almost time to, for our first service. And we're hyped, man.
That's all. July, you said, is the first service,
So what we're going to do is July 9th, 16th, and 23rd, we're going to do what we're calling front yard service.
Okay.
So we're going to do service at home. Bring your own chair, kids ministry in the house. We got the worship team ready.
I love it.
Ready to go. And then starting August 6th, we'll be at Charleston High School in the auditorium.
Nice.
There'll be signs out front. We'll have a welcome team ready to help people outside find their way. And then hopefully the middle of January, our building will be ready, renovated, ready to go. So it's an exciting process. And it has its lonely moments too. And what I mean by that is sometimes like people will text me, Daryl, so what's going on with what am I supposed to be doing and I'm like, just hold on.
Yeah.
So it's like I have a lot of things in my head that I have to wait until something over here is done to put that piece together. And so it's like I'm holding a lot of stuff in my head that I can't really express.
Yeah.
Not that I'm not able to express it, but it just wouldn't make sense yet.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It would give you more questions than the answer. Exactly. You know what I mean? Than the answers I would have.
Right.
But it's fun. I watched the podcast. There's a guy out of Atlanta who started a church plant.
Okay.
He came out of Hillsong and started a church plant. And just listening to like his podcast while I'm exercising and stuff gave me a lot of tips and knowledge about like certain things to be prepared for.
Nice.
But we're excited. It seems like the community is excited. There's no place in the community, whether it's in Charleston or even I'm from Chicago. There's no place in Chicago I'm afraid to go. Right. You know what I mean? Like I'm not the guy who is timid about going certain places to reach the lost. You know what I mean? I'm from that side of the tracks, so to speak. So we're excited. We
awesome.
we can't wait. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. And big shout out to Whit, because Whit saw things in me that, you know, people had planted in me from, you know, long ago. So Whit initiating that conversation about, hey, you know, do you think you would ever want to come on staff as a pastor? You know, just did so much, you know, for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's see, in June 2021, my wife and I actually went to Wisconsin to a 4-day conference to be assessed by an organization to see if we would be fit in their eyes to be church planners. And so it was an intense, it was 10, 12-hour days.
Wow.
Being assessed the whole time.
Really?
It was interviews. You had to one of the assessors would sit down at a table across from me, and it was just you two in the room, and you had to lead them to Christ. So they wanted to see it was intense, man. At the very end, there were, how many couples were there? There were 10 or 12 couples, I think. So 20, 22, 24 people, somewhere around there. We all had to do a large group project at the end. And basically it was a presentation to the assessors, who were the investors, or however you want to call it, basically to see, so they could see how everybody would be, asking for support financially and every other way to start a church. And so we went through that. And for that particular organization, we didn't meet their criteria. So we actually got told no. And so after we left FWC, we left in March. In June, we went to that conference, and I'd actually already signed up for this conference before we left. Hopefully, yeah. Sorry, Brad. I knew before we left. I knew it was coming. I just didn't know when.
Yeah,
and so then we left. We're we'll just go attend our family's church, the church that I grew up, the church that we're in right now, and we did that whole thing, and we'll just go back there and be with family for a while until we know what God has for us. So we did that, and it was a no from them. And so even in that process, we still started a nonprofit organization to do a bunch of other stuff. But we also had thought at some point maybe that will also become a church. And so I don't have a clue if that's going to be in our future ever or not. God hasn't. He's called us where we're at right now, so that's what we're doing.
So what did that hurt?
It hurt me. Because, and I forget, there was one part in the interview. I'm a pretty emotional guy a lot of times. And so they were talking about, why we left the church that we were at. And I started to get emotional. Yeah. And then they asked, I said, where is this coming from, do you think? And I think, and not that where the church that we were at or anybody rejected us.
For sure.
But I had internalized it that way. And I think the enemy whispered in my ear that you're leaving because you weren't good enough. And you couldn't cut it. And then talking about that brought that back up. So then to hear at the end again, that you're not good enough, it cut me pretty deep.
Really?
It hurt. And I think my wife was almost relieved, because I don't know if I think she wanted to, but wasn't exactly sure if that would have been the route and the avenue to do it through. And so at first, they gave us a binder of all their findings and stuff. And I was for weeks afterwards, flipping through that binder and what's wrong with me? What do I need to fix? And I don't know. It was similar to the story I told you when we left the church, and it was just, I had all these things built up that I was feeling, and then God just took it all away, just gave me peace and said, just trust me.
Right.
And it was kind of the same thing after obsessing over why I wasn't good enough again, to get to the point where God says it has nothing to do with you anyways.
Exactly. And I don't, you know what? I don't know if I like that model. I mean,
I'm going to be honest, it was weird.
Yeah. And maybe for and that's when you get into the church as an organization. Right. They probably have this business model type approach to, if we're going to send you to Los Angeles to plant a church, we need to. Yeah. But my question would be, why do you need to have a conference to do that? You don't know individuals amongst your
right,
organizations or even churches that, because for me, like, if my church is established and growing and I'm like, hey guys, I think we should plan another destination church in Atlanta. Tony and Rebecca, can y'all go down there and scout it out and pray over the places? You know what I mean? Like, it's so impersonal.
It was weird too, because we found out after, whenever everybody, like when everything was over, everybody was getting ready to leave. We made some really good friends there, people I still talk to.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't meet anybody that I didn't like. And I didn't meet anybody that I thought they're in this for the wrong reason. I believe everybody that was there had a genuine heart to serve the Lord and plant a church to bring him glory.
Mm-hmm.
But we found out at the end that out of like the 10 or 12 couples, there was 2 couples that didn't know somebody there. And we were one of those couples. So it was like this assessor brought these 2 couples with him because they think that they'd be good at planning a church.
Why not just
send them out? So we had the same, it was like, why not just pick people? Because after the assessment, if you pass, then there's like a church planning 101 conference. I'm like, why not just pick people and take them to that? Is what it seemed to me.
If you know people amongst your congregation or amongst your tribe who, hey, they could do send them out.
Yeah, and it was the same thing as leaving the other church. It hurt for a while, but looking back, I loved every minute of it. Regret nothing. I learned a lot. Same thing with this conference, and we actually got one of the other couples that was there, that was planning a church in Florida, actually reached out and asked if we would move to Florida and help them plant the church. And at first I'm like, Florida sounds pretty good.
Man, especially around December, November.
Yeah. And I think it was like October, November, whenever they asked.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, man, that does sound nice. And I let my wife know, and we prayed about it. And it's just like, it didn't feel right. Didn't feel like it was the right thing.
And that was like part of my process of resigning from home church was a lot of, okay, Lord, is this Daryl's feelings?
Yes.
Or is this what you're saying? Because I don't want, if it's Daryl's feelings, I can eat my feelings. I don't want to play around with that. So I took a brief sabbatical. I wasn't around nobody, like, because the kids were still in school. Heather works long hours, so I was from 8 in the morning till about 6.
Yeah,
I'm by myself. Then Scott Sims has a cottage out in the country. I went out there for a while just to, it's no internet out there, just to completely detach.
That's cool.
And try to hear from God, like, is this
right?
You know, I went to Cuba in February, and there were some people there from a church that they had planted, not in Cuba, a church that they planted. I believe it was Ohio. Forgive me, y'all, if I got that wrong. But they're like in their 22nd year now.
Wow.
And so like hearing about that first year, and the thought process was they were at a church, and they didn't like some of the things that were going on. And so 4 of them were like, guys, let's just plant a church.
Yeah.
And they did, and it grew, and God blessed it. And my process wasn't like that. Like, and that was another thing, was that is people can take you leaving the church when things aren't good.
Yeah.
I had a good job. You know what I mean? I was associate pastor. I was the community liaison for all things for Charleston. I was, you know, it was good.
Yeah.
But I was still hearing something.
Yeah.
So just searching that through.
Yep.
The spiritual side. Then weigh that with
the
dad, human husband side. Wait a minute. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, cool. It sounds wonderful. It's awe-inspiring. I got a salary over here.
Right.
That we base some bills off of.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, like, Lord, I'm walking away from the comfort of that too.
Yes.
And you know, people don't like to talk about that side of because you should be able to,
right.
You're right until the first time that direct deposit doesn't hit.
Yeah. And
you forgot that on the first, your direct deposit on the first pays the mortgage on the first. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just that type of stuff, you know, I had to walk through that with God and you know, the Lord, we don't have a keyboard, Lord. We don't have and just he closed the birds. You know what I mean? Right. Just a lot of the old verses that I've learned as a kid came back to memory. Like, right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's cool.
So it's a fun process. It's definitely is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I can't drive through a town without seeing an abandoned building. Like, man, that would be a good church.
That'd be a good church. Oh, we do that all the time.
That'd be perfect. You could set this, and my mind just starts going and going.
Oh yeah. We do that too. What we've been doing is going to other churches to check out like their systems and what they do.
Right.
Or that's the plan. What happens is like you'll go in, you want to see their welcome team system, how they come up to you.
Yep.
Do they recognize new people?
Right.
How do they point you to the kids' ministry? And then you get into, you know, the sanctuary. And once the pastor comes up and either does the announcements or once the worship begins, you feel at home. You're no longer in research mode.
Right.
Because now you're in your father's house and you're just one of his kids praising and worshiping him. It's funny because like we lock into, this is my church, this is my church, this is my church. Seems like you lock into, this is my church. Ain't no other good churches doing what? They are.
Right.
Yeah, God didn't just bless you.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's fun, man. It's been a wild ride.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
When did you know? So it was weird because when I was, I don't know, probably early mid teenager, going to church here, maybe even before that, I like even sitting in church, I would see myself on that stage in that church preaching. And I didn't know what it meant.
Yeah.
Because back then I was like, we got in public, I was like, hold my mom's arm. I was a mama's boy. I was shy. I didn't want, don't even look at me. Don't talk to me. No, nothing.
Yeah.
I want to go get my pizza and leave. Like, that's all
it.
I want.
That's it.
And so I was like, I will not stand it. I went to Lakeland College for a year and I failed speech because I wouldn't go. Like, and to go from that to like, oh,
I had
by the way.
speech at Lakeland too.
Did you?
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew, I had like visions of it as an early age, but I didn't know what I was called to do until later in life. When did you know that you were called to be a pastor?
I think around puberty, around 13, 14. I grew up Southern Black Baptist, west side of Chicago, big booming preacher, Pastor Dr. Lott, just these big, you know, and he taught us a lot about how to be men, how to be men of God. And we used to be there all day.
Yeah.
All day. And it was hot in there. And I used to lay under the covers trying not to go. But I knew around then. And then when I got around 18, 19, I took off the opposite direction.
Yep.
I want to come into church, sit in the back, ask God to forgive me for Saturday night and Friday night.
Yep.
Boom, go home and eat, watch the Bears game, and chill. But it was around 2005. I started going to a church on the south side called California Gardens. Okay. Dr. Robert Bonds III is the pastor. And he quickly put me into leadership. Quickly. Like, Brother Daryl, you're going to be over the kids ministry.
Yeah.
And it was something about him or God in him that revitalized that.
Gotcha.
And we would take the kids to like Bulls games, and we had youth stuff on Friday, and just like seeing my mother and father and sister happy to see me like re-energized and rededicated. And then after that, 25, 26, I never ran again. Gotcha. You know what I mean? I was always, okay. I still made my mistakes.
Yeah.
But I was always, I know I'm going to be a pastor. I know I'm going to be a pastor. I never wanted to do anything else. Like I thought about, I was smart in school, so I thought about being a doctor because I wanted to get a nice sports car and stuff like that. I didn't really want to be a doctor. I wanted the stuff that I could get from being a doctor.
Yeah.
Being a pastor was really the only thing I wanted to do. Like, I remember my sister always wanted to be an educator, and I'm a high school teacher also. But I always, I think I'm a high school teacher. That's ministry too. The particular school that I work at, Kansas TLC, it's ministry as well.
Yeah.
But ever since I was little, kids just always kind of gravitated to me. I was always a youth ministry guy, so it's not an odd thing that I'm also a teacher. But I think all I wanted to be was a pastor, and it's odd because I'm an introvert. So like
that's hard because I am an extroverted introvert.
Extroverted introvert.
I'm an introvert at heart, and like when I like to refuel, I need quiet, alone time and stuff. I enjoy being around people, but I don't always want to be like, I don't know. I'm always a fan of like being the center of attention or being like the focus of everything. So that's a weird dynamic of being introverted, but also being a pastor that is the one that everybody's staring at for 30, 40, 50 minutes on a Sunday morning, listening to him talk.
It is. But for me, it's like in those moments, God is taking over. Like,
for sure.
You know what I mean? I'm not a center of attention dude. Like, even my vehicle, like, you can't see in. Right. Like, I want to be as low key as low key. But then there's this side of me that's like, for the gospel.
Yes.
Or like podcast stuff. So to unify the body and to help edify people, I'll come out of that shell. But if it's not like those things, catch me at somebody's private pond catching bluegill somewhere
100%.
Alone.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm the exact same way.
I think a lot of pastors are like that.
I think like, so.
What are you doing? Man, I'm sitting over here. Who's with you? Nobody.
Nobody.
Yes. Yeah.
I think a part of it, and it's not a bad thing at all. It's not. I think a part of it is, as a pastor, the majority of the time that you're approached, it's because somebody needs something.
For sure.
Whether they need prayer or they need help with a bill or they need advice on something. Yep. And so it can be draining. But I love that drain.
Absolutely.
Because I know that is just, God has put those things in me to help people. And so that's what I'm passionate about, being a pastor. Which I love preaching, but all of it. Every aspect of it.
Yeah.
Knowing that God has chosen me to be somebody that He is going to allow others to come and ask the questions.
Oh gosh.
And be the conduit from Him to them.
And I was talking to a buddy of mine yesterday, and there's some weight attached to it.
Oh yeah.
That Wit helped me understand about like taking conscious breaks, because you could go 100 miles an hour for 100 straight days,
right,
and not bat an eye to it, and then you're burned out.
Right.
I remember I'm asking them like, how do you not reply to a text at 8:15 p.m.? How do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just like learning like the way he navigated certain situations, and how he's taking 2-week vacations with his family.
Yeah.
Period. You know, there's a ton of things to do if need be.
Yeah.
It's never gonna end.
Right.
And so like a couple nights ago, I had a moment, like I had a bunch of meetings with people, and they were heavy things, and then some stuff for the church, and we had just got back from Virginia, and I was just laying in the bed. Finally, Trace, my 4-year-old, had went to sleep. Heather was asleep, and it was quiet. And I was just like, Lord, I'm tired.
Yeah.
And he was just like, I know, but you're built for this.
Right.
You know,
Yep.
I made you for this.
Yep.
Get some rest.
Right.
You know, and I did. And I woke up, I'll never forget, I woke up the next day refreshed.
Yeah.
Refreshed. Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. Those breaks, though, are mandatory.
Oh, for sure.
Mandatory.
Yeah. Because I've got no problem ignoring a work email that somebody sends me at 7. Like, I'll deal with that tomorrow.
Yeah.
But when somebody reaches out, hey, I need this prayer, I have this question, it's hard to not respond.
Hard to not.
And I can't even bring myself back like, hey, if it's not something that's like, if there's an emergency, yeah, you know, you need to be able to help when you can. But getting to the point where it's like, hey, like, let's talk about this tomorrow. I feel like I've got to be like, just dive into it with them right then and there and take as long as it. Yeah. And there was a time, which now that we moved, I know nobody's going to be able to find me. But there was a time where people would show up. I had a buddy of mine that he showed up, and we were standing on my front porch at 2:30 in the morning because he just needed to come talk and needed to get something off his chest, needed to pray. And I mean, I'm up a lot at night, so that's just, sure, do it. Let's do it. I had a front porch ministry, I call it there, for because people would just show up. Another guy that I had ministered to a lot at our other church that I've become buddies with, he just showed up. I was like mowing the yard, cooking on the grill, kids were outside playing, and he just walks through the gate in the back like, hey, what's going on? We just stood there and talked for an hour. Yeah. It's so, those are the things that it's hard. It's easy when it's work and it's the other stuff, but when it's ministry and it's the church and everything, it's difficult.
It does, and you have to have healthy boundaries, and I think I suck at it too.
I do too.
for that reason, like one thing I've learned though is that sometimes the problem didn't arise overnight.
Right.
So the sense of urgency that someone's attaching to it in their emotional state is not the real sense of urgency. So there's questions that you can ask to kind of figure out, is this something that we need to address right now?
Right.
Or can we wait till in the morning? But when the phone rings at 3 a.m., you know it's serious business. Yeah. You know what I mean? So
something that Craig Rochelle said on one of his podcasts, so this has been a while back, was that I always try to remember is oftentimes we allow what's urgent to distract us from what's important.
For sure.
Because what's urgent isn't always really that important. It just feels like it because there's an urgency attached to it.
It just feels like it.
It takes discipline to be in a position where you can be that person that God can use in those situations, but it takes discipline to distance yourself and take those breaks and stuff.
Yeah.
Brandon, shout out Brandon. He just said something. Last night we started going through the book of Ephesians together, and he was telling me something that he noticed in Scripture, and I hadn't really given it a lot of thought before. But the only time that Jesus would not necessarily turn people away, but that he wouldn't be there for them is whenever he was going to be with the Father. And it was always, I got you, I'll do this, I'll heal you, I'll do it. I got to be with the Father for right now. I'm about the Father's business. I got to go seek him and his will. And so that's something that really stood out to me that he said last night, that I need to remember and not allow the noise over here to keep me from the Father over here.
Father,
because I can't do anything in that situation if I don't have this time with the Father.
At all. It's by the grace of God that we're alive, breathing, doing what we're doing every second of the day is by his grace. So we got to lean into him. I said the other day, like, trying to encourage people to, in the morning, have some time with the Father. Have that quiet time. Have some time of prayer, reading, reflection, with God. Hear from God. Get the peace of God before you start your day. Before you enter walk out your house and enter the chaos. Have some time with God. I was at McDonald's the other day in the drive-thru. Don't judge me, y'all.
No judgment here either.
And so
there's a reason I sit behind the desk to kind of block.
Don't. And so I'm in my truck and I'm sitting there, and I had just posted, like, do you cut people off in that second McDonald's lane?
I remember that,
like a couple days ago. And so we're sitting there talking to Christian. Tracy's in the back laughing. He's singing this Dino Run song. And we felt like a boom, just like a small tap. Our trucks are not small. So I got out, right in the drive-thru, got out, and the kid who bumped into, like, my bumper metal part. He got out. He was kind of timid. And so in his being timid, I was just, you good? Is your car good? He was like, my car's, are you? I'm like,
why are you asking me if my car's good? I hit you.
I'm like, man, I fist bumped him. I was like, yeah, you're all good, man. Take care. But had I not been in conversation with God in the morning, and that little conversation for that young person could have potentially went a different way. You know what I mean? But we need to have the peace of God on us, to be able to navigate in those situations. That could be for that young man a life-changing situation. I don't know, like, if his dad was on his, you got one more thing to do wrong. You never know. You know what I mean? And he sees me hop out the truck, like, I'm not a little guy. You know what I mean? He doesn't know, so I want to quickly reassure that young man, hey, you're solid. This is life. We're in this thing together. But without that morning with God, I don't trust myself without it.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
You mentioned the churches that you grew up in. What kind of a culture, and this will get into a little bit of the topic that we touched a little bit when we had lunch last week, but I knew would come up, and I want to talk about we obviously don't look the same.
No.
And I love talking to people that don't look like me and getting an understanding about that. But
absolutely.
What kind of a culture shock was it going from a black Southern Baptist in the suburbs of Chicago to
Salisbury
a
and
white
Charleston?
Non-denominational church?
So there was in between transition. So I stopped going to Mount Sinai Baptist when I was probably 19. But the neighborhood we grew up in was a mixture of everybody. Black, white, Mexican.
Gotcha.
You name it. And so, like, we had a church in our neighborhood that we did stuff at, because the church on the west side was like 35 minutes away. So we had a church in the neighborhood that we did stuff like Awanas and BBSs. And some Sundays when we didn't want to drive way out west, we would go to Sauk Village Baptist, I think it was called. Sauk Village something church. and like my friends from school were there, and so like that church was predominantly white.
Okay.
And then the church I went to in Aurora, I went to Harvest in Aurora. You know what I mean? So it's probably 70-30. So there was always a mixture of.
Gotcha.
Now, the church I went to on the west side of Chicago, 99% black.
Yeah.
Southern Baptist, long service, every old tradition you could think of. Had
every time you talk about long service, don't look. You can look this one up, but don't watch his comedy because he is not clean up. But have you seen the Gary Owens bit where he talks about going to black church for the first time?
Oh man, legendary. That absolutely.
Bit, it kills me every time.
Me and if I
it's
showed
4 o'clock, we want to go home.
If I showed you me and my sister's thread. A lot of our thread now that we're in our 40s is based on us when we were young.
Yeah.
We talk about church. 50% of the time is church how we grew up. When I say all day, we got there 7 a.m.
Yeah.
We would leave after, first of all, service will start at 9. That service isn't over till 2:45, 3 o'clock.
That's to me, growing up in the Midwest, that's wild. Like small town Midwest.
Flat out period. Pastor Lott was preaching close to 3 hours. The choir was going to sing. There was going to be 2 or 3 interludes with
praise
somebody. The praise dance team was coming through. Bunch of stuff. And then my grandmother owned a restaurant couple miles away. Boom. So we hit the corner, go to my grandma's restaurant, eat. Now it's 4 o'clock. Now we're talking about, are we coming back for evening service? So me and my sister are like, oh, Lord, please, Lord, we learned enough. And we learned enough. Boom. We go into evening church.
Yeah.
6 to 8-ish.
Yeah.
So now we've been there 12 hours. Don't let it be a tent revival on the corner too. Tent revival, you're there till midnight, because the tent revival was so special because it would be on the corner at night, west side of Chicago. Tent, and the size of the tent would be open. So Pastor Lott or Dr. Turner or Reverend Randall would be preaching.
Yeah.
And you got gang members and people on drugs hearing the word. Faith come by hearing.
Yeah.
So they're hearing the word, walking past. And so seeds are getting sown. And looking back on it, they did it right.
Right.
We was just kids. We wanted to go home.
Right.
You know what I mean? So all those little pieces, are still inside of me. But by the time I got to Salisbury, hour and a half long service, I was accustomed to that. Right. By then.
We're done already? Wow. Okay, cool.
Yeah, we done. Pastor Sims, we out of here. I was before then. I had never. You weren't going to catch the Bears game unless the Bears played an evening game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's funny.
And so I think for me now, I'm a little bit in between. I feel like, we should have a blueprint of like, okay, we got 4 worship songs, the message, I want to do the message in 40 minutes, but if not, not.
Yeah.
I think we've gotten to a place where we fit church into a schedule. Yep. And church better be done by this amount of... what if God ain't done speaking?
Exactly.
By that time?
Right. Having the GPS set for your destination is important because you have to know where you're going. But you're going to... If you had to hit a detour for this reason or that reason, take it.
Yeah.
Like, we need a format for church so we're not just flying blind, and God is a God of order. We need some order. For sure. But when he shows up, throw your order out the window and do what he says.
Absolutely. I never liked when and I've done it too, Whit's done it. I've seen every pastor I know has done it, where like something in the service before the message or before worship took a little longer. And so we're scrambling now. Okay,
right.
All right, do we cut out a song, or are you going to cut off 10 minutes on the... No, we're not cutting out a song. Yeah. And you don't cut 10 minutes off. Yeah. You know what I mean? Give it how God gave it. You know, and I think for me, we have to get back to church is the priority on Sunday. Yeah. Everything else follows suit. If I get to the Bears game at the third quarter, so what? Right. That's that's secondary to what God is doing on Sunday morning. Right. And I think that's a little, I like to say I'm a mixture between contemporary now and old school of the 80s. You know, I was talking to a older retired pastor last week, and it was interesting, like hearing his views on the church now, and they were spot on. Yeah. And then like my views on the church now, and where we meet, like in the middle on a lot of things. Yeah. As far as what people wear in church now, from like all the way to how many dinners do you need to have at the church? You know what I mean? All those type of things. Right. All those type of things. Yeah. It's just interesting, like how people come up, where they came up at, how they were raised, gives us all these different biases. Yep. That what's it called? Absolutely. Like when you have a bias and you don't even know you have it.
Like a predisposition?
Yes. Yeah. Like, you know, to certain things where like, you know, we hear people say, well, we need to go back to, you know, only singing hymns, right? Because this stuff that they're doing now, such and such. Well, do you know that your great grandmother would have said it was sin as soon as that organ came up in the church?
That is, yes.
You know what I mean? Like, so just those.
I was just talking to somebody recently about that, and we had talked to. We've had some stuff at the church as we've kind of contemporized, I guess, modernized a little bit some things, and kind of moved some of our services around and changed a few things. A lot of the older crowd, the older generation, I think in a way feeling like the younger generation's coming in and pushing them out.
And I don't like that they feel like that.
I don't either, because, and I told our elders when we had an elder meeting the other night too, I pray almost every single day, God, remind me of this when I'm the older generation.
For sure.
Because there's going to come a time where what I'm doing now is traditional.
For sure.
And the contemporary is completely different. Yeah. And I think, so for me now, on my perspective, I can look back and say, well, the hymns were contemporary at one point, and whatever was before that was contemporary at one point. And things have just changed as culture has changed over the years. Yeah. Not that the church should conform to the culture, but that's another one that's kind of...
It's a tricky one. It's a tricky one.
To verbally rationalize it is difficult.
It is.
Because the church should influence culture, not the other way around. But we inherently have culture just as a part of us that's going to influence what we do in the church.
Absolutely. Being on earth, I mean, if you even think about... and Whit and I had countless conversations about how do we make the older generation feel needed, because we need your wisdom more than anything. And I'm in between the older generation and the younger generation. So I get, you know, both aspects of it, and I'm so in between that I like Amazing Grace from the hymn book, and I like when Dante Bowe sings Gyra. Right. You know what I mean? I'm so in between that I see why you feel that way, and I see why you feel that way, but there's got to be a way that we can make everybody feel included. Yep. And there will be a time where you and I look at our kids when they're leading the church and we're like, you see this nonsense, this what type of it's them now. Right. You know what I mean? It's they know what's going on.
Right.
You know, in that time, and I just pray that they'll look to us for wisdom.
Yeah.
Like, do you think this is a bad idea if we try such and such?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because without wisdom, you're gonna run amok. And there is a fine line between being worldly and tradition, but here's, quite frankly, is whatever church my great grandmother went to, what they sang, what they wore, what they did was influenced by the culture they were in of the time.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, and that's just the case. But we have to do that with the wisdom of God. Right. I'm able to talk to young men who are from ghettos and hoods, and because I know the lingo. I know what they wear.
Yeah.
I know what they're hinting at means. Right. So we still have to be hip to what's going on. Yep. Because the fact of the matter is, if I run up on Tyree trying to tell him about God, but my approach is wrong, I've already lost him. I got to meet him where he's at.
Right.
That doesn't mean I have to meet him at the front counter at the bar.
Right.
No, that means that I have to meet him right where he is in his life.
Yep.
You know,
exactly.
And that's the caveat that's difficult.
Yeah.
Difficult.
That's, and I haven't said it in these words because God has made me a lot more blunt than I used to be. I would dance around everything and try to cushion everything that I said and package it in the most palatable way possible. He's made me a lot more bold and blunt recently. But I haven't said it like this. But what I really want to say to the people that I'd wear my hat on stage when I preach if I could. If I knew that
you wouldn't get attacked,
but it wouldn't be upset people, I'd put it on backwards and preach. But I don't, because I know that it's not worth it. It would cause more problems than it would bring solutions. Yeah. But what I really want to look at people and say is, when I start preaching a false gospel, you let me know.
There it is.
Is the way that I preach matter, or what I preach matter? Or is the way that the room looks because there's black paint on the wall, and that's, God is the light and we shouldn't have black paint and all these kind of things. Is that what matters? Does it matter what we're singing, what we're preaching, what we're saying? Are we glorifying God or not? Are we preaching truth or not?
Right.
That is what matters.
Right. Somebody had posted a comment on something that I posted, or I had posted something like that, and it was a preacher saying, how did he say it? He said, I'm not going to be one of these hipster pastors that preach in jeans. I'll always have a suit and tie on. And so I did like every well-respecting person. I went immediately to the comments to see the circus.
Yep.
And comment after comment. And you could tell where like the age gap came from. Absolutely, preachers should have a suit on. Then you have somebody... what difference does it make? And so I simply said, what did Jesus preach in? What did Jesus preach in? What did Peter preach in?
Right.
Well, that's what they wore when? In the time frame that they were preaching. I don't care if Pastor Scott had on a suit or Pastor Scott had on his running shoes and some jeans.
Right.
It's what's coming out of his mouth from God that's going to edify.
Yes. Because my generation, and especially the generation after, I'm a millennial.
For sure.
And Gen Z's coming right behind me. They see a suit. That's a stuffy, boring preacher.
Not going.
But they see me up there preaching in jeans and Jordans and a short sleeve hood. This is what I want to
hear him. Yeah.
Yeah. They like, he looks like me. I want to listen to him.
And they're coming. Gen Z's kicking some doors down.
Yeah.
And people didn't believe in Gen Z, but people didn't believe in y'all either.
Right. Yeah.
But God's going to do some things through Gen Z.
Yep.
And it ain't going to have nothing to do with what nobody has.
Right.
That argument is a distraction.
Yeah.
From the devil.
Absolutely.
Now, I stand firm on that. And I'll tell any young lady in the church who's dressed inappropriately.
Yeah.
Hey, babe, can you have her go?
Right.
Or any young man that's dressed inappropriate. Hey, come here, man. Let me tell you.
Right.
This is what you should.
Yeah.
But I don't care about the fabrics that you have on.
Right.
Me and the older pastor and I, he said, Daryl, you might not. I love when people say this. He said, Daryl, you might not agree with me on this, but I remember when we used to have to get ready to go to church and mama would make us put on our best.
Sunday best.
I just feel like people go into the church just wearing any old kind of thing. I said, Pastor, you're right, but here's where we messed up at. We were taught you put on your Sunday best, okay? And so then when we walk in, suited and booted, dressed to the nines, Sally the crackhead and Jim the heroin addict feel like they can't go in that church, when in actuality they need to come into the church.
Right.
So we mess them up by not saying come as you are. And you know what I mean?
And I think that the people in the church, I think it messed up people in the church too, because it was, God loves me because I put on my Sunday best. Or I'm bringing honor to God. How do I bring honor to God? Oh, something physical, something flesh, or it's spirit. And I think it kept part of the world out and it kept part of the world bound up that was in the church.
I will never forget when this, and it's crazy, this lady who I worked with, she's not saved, but she always had a lot of questions for me.
Yeah.
And so there was a lady that we worked with who was actively cheating on her husband. Okay. So it was during Lent. And so they had ordered pizza for us, right, at the school. And so she grabbed a plate with no meat on it. Yeah. So the other lady was like, why you didn't get the sausage like you usually get? She was like, oh, because it's Lent and I don't eat meat on Fridays. It's my religious thing. Yeah. And so she looked at me and she said, Daryl, she cheating on her husband, but she not going to put the meat on the pizza. So like we can...
At first, I thought you said she was going to give up cheating on her husband for Lent.
No,
I'm glad that was.
No. She was going to give up the sausage. Right. So we can go through all this religious stuff and be just as messed up. Yep. On the inside, we can we could put makeup on a pig if we want. Right.
It's still a pig.
It's still a pig. Yeah. Like we're still, no matter how we dress it up or not, like. Right. We still need God, right? You know, and so when we walked into church like stellar pillars of the world and in our priestly robes, we told people who were really struggling, who had no money, who John might only have the pants with the holes in them. Yeah. Sorry, John, you can't come. We messed them up.
Or if you do come and sit over there,
I won't be that guy.
Where you won't be on camera, and
I won't be that guy.
No. Our saying here at our church is, come as you are, we just don't do naked.
There you go.
Wear whatever you want, as long as you're wearing something.
Put it on.
My father-in-law is our lead pastor here, and he somebody had reached out several years ago. He actually wrote a book called God Loves Gays But Hates Homosexuality. And broke it down.
Why? Yeah.
And so somebody reached out. I think he was just a cross-dresser. I don't think he was like transitioning or anything. This was several years ago before the whole transition thing became really popular. But he had reached out and, basically bashing our pastor and stuff for that. And it turned around. He ended up inviting this cross-dresser to church and said, wear a dress. You just come to church.
Come.
And the sad, a cool but sad part of that story. Through that conversation, because he wrote that book, because he spoke truth in love to this gentleman, he got saved, but he actually died before he ever got to make it. He was in New York. He passed away before he could actually make it to be in church with us.
Really?
But before
was he sick before? I
think so. I think he had some form of cancer. But because our stance was come as you are.
Yeah.
He felt loved. He saw the love of God and was able to accept the gospel message.
Absolutely.
Because of that.
And that we walk around and people walk around like they're better than others because I don't struggle with what you struggle with. Right. You struggle with something.
Yeah.
Yours might not be outwardly like mine, but just like people who will look down on an alcoholic or someone struggling with addiction, you look down on them because you can see their struggle is public.
Right.
But that woman struggling with the meth addiction, her heart might be cleaner than yours.
Right.
But since you can see hers outwardly, then you feel like you can feel better about your struggle.
Nope.
That's not godly.
Christians don't call out hidden sin.
Oh, no.
Even if I know your hidden sin,
no.
I'm not going to call it out unless it's public, because then it's easy pickings. It's blatantly obvious. It's out there in the open.
Yeah.
And I'm good at hiding mine. That's why homosexuality, transgender, abortion, all of those are the hot button,
right now,
super popular
right now
issues that Christians want to preach against. While yes, they're sin, they're wrong, but it's just easy because it's out there in the open.
It's out there in the open,
and it's a minority group of people, so it's easy for me to preach against homosexuality because I'm straight. I ain't got to worry about it.
You don't struggle with it.
Yeah. I've never been involved in a relationship that had an abortion part of it. So that's easy for me to talk about because anything I say has nothing to do with me.
For sure.
And Christians, we talk about the easy stuff but we refuse to talk about the real stuff.
The sermons that I've done with the most passion are things about what I've went through, my hidden sin, because I've walked through that stuff. But it's easy write a sermon about adultery and being people on the head. Or, you know what I mean? But we really have to have conversations. I was having a conversation yesterday with a buddy of mine about medical marijuana and like the real usages and where does that affect the what's the word, the view of ministry. Like so if studies said that medical marijuana helped with the cancer pain of chemo. Here's an example. And Heather's been through chemo a bunch of rounds, my wife. So let's say, and they've said, like, she could have got a prescription, she just turned it down.
Right.
So let's say science says medical marijuana helps with the pain of somebody going through chemo.
Yeah.
Can they use cannabis as a medicine and still serve a high level in ministry?
Right.
Those type of conversations that people shun and are afraid of.
Right.
I want to be able to talk to people about. I want an expert to be able to talk about why there's so many different levels to something.
Yeah.
And I think that this generation, especially in the podcast space, is not afraid to talk about the things that, because a lot of things we were just told growing up. But when you're like, why? Because I said so. But why though?
But why really?
Yeah, I was so nosy. My mother would say, like, when I was 3 years old, I'd be looking through my father's sunroof at the stars or something and be like, why are those up there? Oh, because God put them. But why?
Right.
I've always been, since I was a little kid, like, You can't just tell me no
Right.
any old thing.
Yeah.
I want to know why. I believe you.
Right. Yeah.
I believe you. I believe you want the best for me, but I want to know the why.
Yeah.
You know, and that's one of the reasons I started my podcast, was because I want to have conversations that people who might be scared to have them can see.
Yeah, exactly.
Can see. Because I feel like if people would just have conversations, a lot of what's going on in the world wouldn't be going on.
Right.
But a lot of it goes on because people won't have conversations.
Exactly.
You know, I used to tell people all the time, like, if you don't know a black dude from Chicago who you'll never get a chance to ask questions that you've always wanted to ask,
right?
Ask me.
Right.
Ask me. You know what I mean? Like, because these, and you know what we went through, like, during the election, COVID and the election ripped, forget the world, ripped the church apart.
Did. 1,000%.
We failed.
Yeah.
We failed.
Yeah.
We failed miserably during the election and COVID. The devil just sat back and watched us eat each other alive.
Yeah.
I saw people who I know loved each other stop speaking over red and blue.
Right. The enemy used 2 old white guys and a piece of cloth on our face to destroy churches. There are churches that still aren't open today because of COVID.
Yeah. It's destroyed.
Unbelievable.
Destroyed. I don't ever want us to go. I want us all to learn, myself included. I want us all to learn, like, but in order to learn, you got to be able to look inwardly and be like, yo, I blew this.
Yeah.
And I don't know if enough people did that.
Right.
You know, and when you don't learn a lesson, you're going to repeat it. So
exactly.
You know, yeah, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
That I'm still sad about the way the church acted during those seasons.
I know. Because I got ordained, or I started, the first time I ever preached was December of 2019.
Well, it was about to kick off.
And so then 3 months later, COVID,
boom.
And then it was December of 2020 when I got ordained. So I was the
election was November, right?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
And so I started my internship at FWC in September of 2019, preached for the first time in December, and then that next December got ordained. So as far as like actually being in pastoral ministry, I didn't get to do anything before COVID.
Yeah.
And so it's even frustrating to me because I wasn't involved in pastoral ministry before COVID, but what's happened since, and almost it feels like the table I was given to sit at, it's like, is it really? Why did I get why this? Why now? But it's also exciting at the same time because I feel like, especially 3 years removed from the start of COVID, I feel like the majority of people now are tired of all the nonsense that went on.
Absolutely.
So it's exciting to be in a position now where, as people's hearts and minds are becoming ready for, hey, what's next? Mm-hmm. What are we really going to do? When are we going to get back to normal? Mm-hmm. We get to be in this position to help lead that charge into what the next season of ministry and church and just life.
And I feel like revival is here.
Yeah.
I feel like, you know, people can feel the freshness, the newness. We went to rock bottom. I'll never forget. We were in the office and it was like every hour something different.
Yeah.
And Whit would be like, yo, did you see they're starting to close such and such? And I'm like, what? I'm like, yeah. But from 8 a.m. till about 4, everything's just shutting down.
Yeah.
I remember I had to go to Walmart. The day before, like, you'd go to Walmart, you'd see 1 or 2 masks. You'd be like, this weird person, what's wrong? And then when I went to Walmart the day the world was shutting down, it was complete chaos. But I had to take groceries to a lady in Greenup. And I had to get some stuff for our house. Because this is ground zero. We don't know when we coming back outside.
Exactly.
And so I Zoomed the stuff to Greenup and got home, and it was like the world was about to stand still.
Yeah.
And it was a tripped out feeling.
It was.
And the only good thing came out of it was The Last Dance. If it wasn't for The Last Dance, man, I think I would have lost it.
Right?
I think I would have lost it. It was good seeing, the Bulls in their heyday. And I feel like it casted a better light on things, man, because it was dark. It was dark. That first 2 weeks was pretty dark.
So weird.
Just
surreal, really. Just
like this is America.
Yeah. Like they're starting talking about like martial law and everything and keeping you locked in your house. And my wife's like, what does that mean? What are they going to do? Are they going to be driving around with military trucks, yelling at people to go back inside?
Quarantine zones that you've seen in movies.
Right.
Like, yeah. I don't ever want to.
It was to the point. So when I was 7, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And so the medicine that I'm supposed to take for it that's kind of like in the same, the medicines for arthritis are in a similar family kind of like chemo and stuff. Because it's all like blood cells and everything. So it lowers your immune system. And I quit taking my medicine.
Because you couldn't get it or because you
Because I was afraid to lower my immune system and then go out and get COVID and die.
Oh, yeah. Did you get COVID?
No. Well, I think so. But I have tested negative every time. But like there was a time I couldn't taste, smell, nothing.
Yeah.
It was weird.
That's how I knew I had it. We went, as a staff, we went to, I think, Meat Casa or something. And I ordered what I always ordered. And I looked over at Kendra and I was like, this is gross. Like, this tastes like plastic.
Yeah.
She was like, what? And so I got in my truck. And I went back to the church, and I always had candy. Always. I love candy.
I'm with you.
And so I started eating some candy, and I was like, the candy tastes like plastic. I was like, all right. So I told Whit, took a test, and it lit up like a Christmas tree. That was my only symptom. That was my only symptom. Yeah. But my wife got it. She was fresh off of chemo and it wiped her out. My buddy has what's called long-term COVID.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
I think he had not asthma, but he had chronic something, bronchitis maybe. And so his lungs will never be the same like post-COVID.
Right.
But it was a wild time.
It was.
It was a wild time.
Yeah. It's crazy to me how long it's drug out and how some stuff, Walmart still isn't open 24 hours again.
That's over.
Yeah.
That's over.
It frustrates me.
No
I always need something at 10:50.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I can't make it to Walmart yet.
Oh, you can't?
Now I can't.
You're about 14 minutes away. Yeah.
Now we gotta go to Dollar General down the road that doesn't have hardly anything.
When's it close?
9 or 10.
Yeah.
I think 10.
Yeah. Charleston Walmart, I think it's 11 o'clock.
That's what
we used to go to Walmart all. Yeah.
Yep.
COVID changed the world forever. Yeah. Like some stuff was never, people all, when is normal? No, you're in it. This is
normal now.
You're in it now. We gotta figure out how to navigate this as the new normal. We got to learn from our mistakes, and nobody got it right.
No.
The people who were let's wear masks, the people who were let's wear no masks, the people who were let's do this, give vaccine, don't give. Nobody got it right.
No.
We didn't know.
Right.
We didn't know. I saw somebody say the best candidate for president is a former president. Because you don't know what you're getting yourself into until you get yourself into.
Yeah.
It was the same thing with COVID. Now, you can have quote unquote experts. I said in the sermon, I don't know if I made people mad or not, but it needed to be said that it was amazing how when COVID hit, roofers were CDC experts now. Yeah. And the cashier at Walmart was all of a sudden Center for Disease Control expert. And everybody's an expert.
Everybody.
No, you build houses. You're not an expert on disease. I'm a pastor. I'm not an expert on disease. And everybody's a scientist now.
Yep.
And that was the division, because you think this way is right. I think this way is right. None of us are qualified to make the call.
Exactly.
Now, I don't like you because you got a different thought process than me.
Right.
Your mask did not bother me one bit.
No.
When I went home and played 2K or played catch with Christian, the lady at Dollar General with the full face mask didn't bother me.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
But we went way right and way left. And it was sad to see.
Yeah. Yeah, Brandon and I were just talking about that last night, because we were reading Ephesians 1 where it talks about the predestination thing. We got in the whole conversation of Calvinism and Arminianism and everything else. And it seems like the church always wants to polarize everything, whether it's a conservative church that wants to go way right, a liberal church that wants to go way left. When you read scripture and understand things, and it seems like Christ is usually in the middle somewhere. Mm-hmm. But the church always, because I have this idea, let's go right. Or I think this, let's go left. It's like, when did we quit like reading the word and kind of, following Christ?
For sure.
Because he's somewhere in the middle.
I had somebody ask me a couple weeks ago, if something like COVID comes back, would you close Destination Church? Mm. I said, we're not there. Like, why?
Yeah.
Why try to jump the gun?
Yeah.
On stuff like that.
Right.
Like, but that just goes to show, like, it's still, people were, if somebody closed a church, people were mad.
Right.
Guess what? If you left the church open, Daryl, why in the world are the doors?
You're putting people in danger.
What? Danged if you do, danged if you don't.
Exactly.
Like, we'll cross that bridge if it comes.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't like anything divisive.
No.
I don't like anything divisive. Jesus sat and waited for a woman at a well he wasn't supposed to talk to for a bunch of reasons.
Yep.
I don't like anything divisive.
Right.
Division, it just creates such a wall in humanity. But some people like those walls.
Right. Up. Yeah. I don't like divisive stuff either, because everything that's divisive is just a person with an opinion that is more important than the truth.
For sure.
And if you're not willing to concede to truth, there's no reason to talk
at all.
Because all it is it's gonna be divisive.
Yeah.
If you are also seeking truth, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's find truth together, because guess what?
Together.
I'm wrong and you're wrong.
Exactly. And you have to be okay with being wrong.
Right.
You got to be okay with it.
Yeah.
You have to be okay with not being God. But my prayer is that we don't have to relearn those 2020, 2021 lessons again.
I think a perfect example of it, and we've touched on it a few different times, for me personally, where I had to lay my opinion to the side and find truth, is whenever white privilege started really getting talked about a bunch.
Yeah.
Because when I first hear it, my initial thought was, that's not a real thing. That doesn't exist. I don't get stuff. I don't get special treatment because I'm white. That's nuts. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But to stand in that position and stay there is telling someone that's not white, anything you ever went through is not true, because I don't agree with it.
Yeah.
Just because I've never, and the way the media packages it,
and there's where the disconnect is.
Right.
Yeah.
But when you have an actual conversation, say that's the topic of white privilege, where if you ever had an example where you were competing for a job or a position, something, and the white guy did get it, it is real to you.
It's real, yeah, for me.
But to me, because I've never experienced it, it's not. And so that's where the conversation has to take place.
Yeah, and it's like...
And I've got to be humble enough to say, oh, okay, like it is a real thing.
But what the media does is the media's job is to make money.
Right.
And anything controversial or divisive makes money.
Yes.
So like you said, when you package it like, you could package it one or two ways. You could package it like white privilege doesn't exist for people who think it does, such and such and such and such. Throw it out there like that. Or white privilege does exist, and for the white people who don't think so, you're wrong. Throw it out there like that. And nobody's had a conversation about it.
Yeah.
And that's one... I forgot all about that. That was going on in the same time as COVID, in the same time as the election.
And it seems like this channel has 5 white people talking about how it's not real. This channel has 5 black people talking about how it is real. And those 10 people won't ever get together and talk about it and actually figure it out.
Won't ever get together.
Because that's boring. And then the conversation ends and they got nothing else to propagate now.
Or are going to talk about it. But let me make sure I got my rebuttals ready.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me go into this thing knowing I'm right and you're wrong.
Yeah.
And because a lot of things are in the middle. A lot of things are in the middle.
I would love to see a presidential conversation instead of a debate.
Oh, it won't happen.
And that's the same thing with all this. I would love to see people come together, but exactly, nobody cares about a conversation because it's not explosive and marketable.
So how did it go? And this is how messed up it is. What was it? Donald Trump had Fox News was behind him, right? CNN was behind anything anti-Trump.
Right.
Didn't Fox News turn on him? And CNN turned like...
I think something like that.
Like, because then it's like it's all about money. Because the second Donald Trump didn't acquiesce to something Fox News, they spent, boom, going on you. The second Joe Biden, and it was so biased. Like, and in that time, people were calling me to ask me questions. That was Black Lives Matter was big then too. So white friends and white people that I do know were calling me to get my opinions on stuff. So I wanted to make sure like I was well read.
Yeah.
So I'd watch Fox News, then watch CNN talk about the exact same thing just from the other angle. And so that when people did reach out, Daryl, well, did you see that such and such and such and such? And I could be like, yeah, I saw that.
Right.
But did you see on the flip side of that? You know, just to show people like, you might be right.
Right.
100%. You might be 100% wrong. Have you done, this was always a question have you done research on it?
Right.
Where'd you do your research?
Right.
Did you do your research based on like, okay, like you know the big debate right now, Jordan versus LeBron.
Yeah.
Okay, LeBron's the GOAT. For me, Mike's the GOAT. Mike will be the GOAT. LeBron's the outstanding, exceptional basketball player. There'll never be another one like him. But Mike was a different breed. All right, well, have you done your research? Okay, I'm going to go ask 5 Michael Jordan experts. Right. Yeah, I did my research. I called Fox News to find out.
Right.
That's not research.
No.
You know what I mean? So my thought process was always, or somebody would be like, well, I know this is right because okay, where'd you do your research at? I Googled. Stop. And sometimes we were able to laugh about it and be like, yeah, we don't know what's, what I mean?
Right.
But some people are just set in stone no matter what.
Yeah.
And that makes me feel bad because somebody who can't like look internally and be willing to change off a viewpoint, if you get better knowledge of something, you know, like a nightcrawler catches bass the best. I don't care what you say. We go out to the lake and you catch 6 bass with a spinner and I only catch 1, but I'm standing.
Yeah.
What are you standing on?
Right.
It doesn't make you less of a human, less of a man, less of a person to change your opinion or change your thought process. But things are so ingrained in us that, you know, change is hard, man. But I hope that, and I saw some people change too. I'm not just going to say, you know, I saw some people change during the whole ordeal. And I saw people come back to God too, because what else it showed is that you're not in control. A natural disaster will show that you think as much as in control you are, you're not in control like that.
No.
You let a tornado come through here.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I wish that would teach more people to give God the control of their life.
For sure.
The few things that we actually can control. Why would you rather control that than God?
Yeah.
That my last Sunday, that was like my whole message was about being desperate for God and giving. I got to the point in my life, I said, you have to be pretty desperate to sit on the floor of a public restroom. And that's exactly where I was at.
Pretty low, brother.
At the Cross County Mall in the men's bathroom, sitting on the floor, looking up with my arms in there and said, God, I give up. I'm giving you control of everything because all I do is screw everything up in my life.
Yeah.
And that is when we realize that even the stuff that we can control, we got no business trying to control. Let God control everything. Follow him and give him your life to do what he wants to with it. And that is when you'll see change in your life.
Absolutely. We're on earth 90 years, 92 years, if you're healthy at best.
Yep.
But you have an eternity somewhere.
Right.
You have an eternity somewhere. Do you want to spend your time on earth loving people, helping people with the gospel, helping people to know the Savior? Or do you want to spend it proving that you're tough Tony?
Right.
And, you know, no matter what, I'm going to be... I saw a pastor say it like this. No matter if you're on a cruise ship, luxury liner, headed to the island called death. Whether you're on that luxury liner or you're in a rowboat, everybody's gonna die one day.
Right.
And when it's not gonna matter at that point.
Yeah.
You know, and so what do you want to do with this time that we have?
Right.
You know, spend it fighting each other about something that the devil wants you to fight about. I'm reading a book, Louis Giglio, Don't Give the Enemy a Seat at Your Table.
I've heard of that one.
Great book. And it's just about just stuff like that. Like the things, the enemy knows Daryl's triggers.
Right.
The enemy knows the things that I could be like, that ain't nothing. But he knows the things that will trigger insecurity in me, that will trigger anger in me, that could potentially get me to act out, that could get me to fall apart. He knows all of those things. Don't give him a seat at your table.
Right.
Don't entertain that.
Right.
But you have to have, you have to be willing to look at yourself to be able to do that.
Have to.
And that's what's hard, because a lot of people position their life in such a way that can't nobody tell them nothing. You position your life where you're the boss, you're in control of your own destiny, so nobody can tell you nothing. Nobody can pour into you. Your bottom line won't be affected by anything. You know what I mean? And so it doesn't matter to you. And when we harden our hearts like that, we leave no room for change, no room for God. And
Yep.
You know, God wants to do so much in people's lives, but that hardened heart, that prideful, I know what's best heart, you're just a man. You're just a human.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Let's see. We've been going for about an hour and a half.
Oh, really?
I didn't even realize that.
Wow. That's good.
It felt like we were about 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Anything else you want to talk about? So just for the audience, first of all, if you listen this far, respect.
Mad respect.
That I'm a podcast junkie, so I'll listen to hours and hours.
Yeah.
And I'll listen to, if it's a 4-hour podcast, I'll listen to it in 30-minute increments on the way to and from work until I get through the whole thing. So respect if you got through this part.
Time.
I feel confident saying this will not be our last conversation.
Absolutely not.
So,
absolutely not.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you coming to my house, jumping in my truck, driving over to our church.
Absolutely.
I love doing this, but I really enjoy doing this with you, man.
Yeah, man. This is the first of many.
Yes.
First of many.
I appreciate it.
Definitely.
Again, thank you guys, everybody that has watched and or listened, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, Apple, whether you're seeing clips of this on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok.
Absolutely.
In the description of the video will be my link tree where it's got all that stuff. I will also add somewhere links to Pastor Daryl's, let's see, you got Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube.
Yep.
I think
Spotify
we basically
now.
And Spotify now.
Spotify now. Yeah.
So I'll make sure we put links to all that kind of stuff.
Thank you.
I can't wait to. I don't think I'm inviting myself because I think you mentioned already, but I can't wait to be on the D Philly show.
Yeah. It's coming ASAP.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely.
So, thank you guys so much for watching, listening, liking, subscribing, and all of the social media stuff that I'm supposed to ask you to do.
Yes.
Pastor Daryl, thank you for joining,
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for allowing me to come and invade your space.
Anytime.
And it was a pleasure, man. I enjoyed every moment of it.
I love it.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you guys, and we will see you on the next one.
Peace.